Congress chartered the Second Bank of the United States. Branches were established in many states, including one in Baltimore, Maryland. In response, the Maryland legislature adopted an act imposing a tax on all banks in the state not chartered by the state legislature. James McCulloch, a cashier for the Baltimore branch of the United States Bank, was sued for violating this act. McCulloch admitted he was not complying with the Maryland law. McCulloch lost in the Baltimore County Court, and that court's decision was affirmed by the Maryland Court of Appeals. The case was then taken by writ of error to the United States Supreme Court. This is McCulloch vs Maryland.
I could have chose Nicki Minaj. I could have chose Iggy Azalea. I could have chose.
When no one else was ever behind me, all these lights, they can't blind me. With your love, nobody can drag me down.
Hello, Mr. McCulloch. How are you doing after working very hard on this long case?
I'm doing fine, Dr. Oberfeld. Thank you for asking. It's just been very tedious work over the past few months on this Supreme Court case.
I can understand how it could be taxing on your life for such hard work put into this case and many sleepless nights, and it must be very hard to deal with all of this.
Thank you for understanding my frustration, Dr. Phil.
Oberfeld.
Thank you for understanding my frustration, Dr. Oberfeld. It's just been really hard for me. I'm just really glad they ruled in our favor. I mean, the state of Maryland did not really have the authority to tax a government-owned corporation such as the Second Bank.
Mr. McCulloch did have a very valid argument during the trial, saying that the state of Maryland did not have any right to tax a bank owned by the government, such as the Secondary Bank of America.
Thank you, Dr. Oberfeld. We're here in Maryland with Ashton McGuffey. How do you feel about the McCulloch versus Maryland trial?
I mean, you know, I feel like the Supreme Court made the right decision. I don't think that a state should have power over the federal government, but having a national bank, it's a lot of power for the country, and I think that could cause some problems later, having a national bank.
And now to a state of Maryland representative.
Representing the state of Maryland within this case, after the War of 1812, America was in a large amount of debt. Of course, this is a huge problem. However, this does not mean that Congress has the power to create a second national bank. But at first, as a state of Maryland, we were quite happy with the outcome. But then we began to sense the crisis that would come for our economy. As a state, we did decide to create a lawful tax on the Baltimore branch of the Second National Bank in hopes of gaining more state power. The fact that McCulloch didn't comply with the implementation of our tax is simply wrong and illegal. The national government has too much power, and the states should be independent, and clearly they are. We should have the power to create taxes for our businesses and our companies that are within our borders. It's simply unfair that people cannot comply with taxes that are legally put on our businesses or banks within our borders. That is why I believe, as the state of Maryland, that McCulloch should be forced to comply with all of our regulations.
The Supreme Court ruled that the tax implemented by the state of Maryland was unconstitutional, as this would allow a state to tax the federal government, a power not granted to them by the Constitution. The federal government also argued that through the elastic clause of the Constitution, the bank was legal, as the Constitution gives them power to coin money and place it where they need it.